Hi, my name is Dr. Mitchell Green. I'm a clinical and sports psychologist located in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I'm pleased to be collaborating with WTCA and the coaches and the players to try to help build a better information resource and better coaching resource for those of you working with female athletes, specifically female tennis players. This is a topic that's very important to me as someone with three daughters, three athletic daughters, someone who in my private practice has a preponderance of females more than males. This is a subject that's very important to me and something that I'm happy to be speaking about today. More specifically, I want to talk to you about perfectionism, a topic that comes up that I see at home with my daughters, that I see with the athletes that I work with, and I'm sure that you see with the athletes that you coach. For several reasons, the young women of today feel a tremendous amount of pressure. I know that in my own home, we work very hard not to put pressure on our kids athletically or academically, but sometimes that doesn't even matter. They feel it. They feel it whether it's societal pressure is there for them. They feel it whether there's just peer-to-peer pressure, not necessarily peers putting pressure on them, but just peer-to-peer pressure in the sense that everywhere they look on social media, they just get this sense that they're not enough and haven't been doing enough. And instead of being just good old Jane, who has her strengths and has her areas of weakness, Jane feels like she has to be super Jane all the time, whether it's on the court, whether it's with her friends, or whether it's in the classroom. This can make coaching young female athletes a challenge, and I'm sure you've experienced that yourself. So I wanted to give a couple of tips, a couple of things to be mindful of to help you, help them, and help yourself, and help your team move forward in a positive direction. I think the first thing that comes to mind is about this idea of redefining success. Success for many of these young athletes that you're going to be working with leaves a very small margin. The image I have is if you're trying from 10 feet away to hit a tennis ball back into the tennis can, it's a very challenging thing to do, but I often think of success as being sort of that size of the tennis can for them. And so if they're trying to hit a ball back into it, it's very difficult. Yes, sometimes they're going to get it in and they'll feel great success, but most of the time when you don't win, you feel like when you don't get it in the can, you feel like something completely different. And if success is defined by getting it in the can, any ball that remains outside the can feels like a failure. So we're often having these young women feel like if they're not successful, then they're failures. And so you can help them redefine success. Give them, instead of a small can to shoot in, give them more of a bucket that they need to shoot into. All right, how do you really do that? Well, you need to have good conversations with them, honest conversations with them, and create an environment where they feel comfortable talking to you about how they define success. And you could point out some of the people that they might see as role models, whether they're other tennis players on the tour, whether they're tennis players on their high school team, or tennis players they just admire, getting them to see that those people don't win all the time, that failure is part of their development and growth. And so that's one way to help them redefine success, is by having conversations about it and pointing out to the world around them that these people that they might look up to and put on a pedestal have often failed much more than they've succeeded. And that conversation can help hopefully loosen some of the very tightness that they're bringing into matches, they're bringing into their lives, they're bringing into their relationships. The second, I think, is the real great importance of having some pre-match meetings and some post-match debriefings. You may already be doing this, but hopefully you're going to be able to start doing it by talking with them not just about the goal of winning, but having these additional goals that you could talk with them about that they want to accomplish within the match, right? Because winning isn't something that your athletes can directly control. If they could, they'd always win. You want to have other conversations with them about additional goals that they might try to set for themselves. I like to call them improvement type goals, goals where they want to, things that they want to get better at, whether it's strategic goals in terms of how they handle their opponent, whether it's some technical goals, or of course, whether it's some mental goals, how well they bounce back from mistakes, how well they deal with a couple of games that they might lose, how they handle fatigue. There are a number of mental skills goals that you could emphasize to them are really where you want them to focus. So first we have redefining success. The second is we have some some pre-match and post-match conversations about additional goals beyond the win. And then the last piece of advice for you coaches is you need to do the work yourself. If you're asking your young athletes, your young female athletes to revisit this topic of being perfect, I'd like you to consider doing that yourself. If you've set yourself with a very small margin for success, where most of everything else then is failure, then how can you kind of go from a tennis can to a bucket in terms of expanding what you define as success for yourself and for your team? That work is as important, if not more important, than the work we're asking of our athletes. We don't want to be accused of being hypocritical here. So spend a little time, or more than a little time, working on yourself. If I could be of any help in all of this, there are certainly plenty of ways that you can reach me. My website is www.greenpsych.com, GREENEPSYCH.com. And I thought I'd offer some food for thought for you, those of you like myself trying to help young female athletes become the best they can be. Thank you very much.